All right, guys, this is Northbound Central coming back at you with another YouTube video. I missed yesterday. I was actually out of town, but I hope every one of you is having a great weekend so far as we kind of edge closer to that 4th of July weekend. But anyway, let's go ahead and get straight into it. So, obviously, Florida State recruiting has been on a hot streak lately. It's been getting a lot of commits on the month of June, specifically, I think it's 12 so far in the month of June. So, that's pretty impressive considering what Florida State's gotten so far in this class. We've gotten 20 prospects, and they've seen a lot of great news and a lot of positive updates so far in their recruiting class. Obviously, you want to see more good news on the trenches like offensive line, defensive line, and some other positions as well. But overall, they had a chance to go ahead and get Ben Mavinja as well. He's an offensive tackle from Buford, Georgia. Unfortunately, he actually committed over to Arkansas instead of picking Florida State. So obviously, they got folks wondering, well, we have three interior offensive linemen. We got rid of Xavier Payne, and he's decommitted from the program, and they've kind of mutually parted ways, and he was one of their offensive tackles that they had. Now he's looking at more of like a Syracuse type of fit, and Florida State really hasn't gotten an offensive tackle in this class. You want more offensive tackles because it's a prioritized position. Then you turn over to having Xavier Griffin. A lot of Florida State fans were kind of hesitant to see if even Florida State would even be having the process of landing him. Florida State did feel pretty confident that they could be able to have a chance in that recruitment. Obviously, he committed over to Alabama recently, and now you're trying to search for answers at that linebacker spot. John Papuchis has done a good job in expanding that board and giving us more options, but you got to land some of those guys too. And you also have Maycock, who is also going to be making his final decision coming up against an Alabama, Florida, and also Florida State. With Alabama landing Xavier Griffin, I think that does bear a little bit more to making sure that Florida State does land Maycock, but at the same token, you still have to land him because he's a commit making his final destination and final decision before he's locking everything down. So that's always kind of a bad circumstance there that you never really want to have with some of your commits. You don't want to have those decisions. So obviously, you want to get some of those guys in and lock those recruitments down. So obviously, you're going to have to expand the board a little bit more there. And also with Rodney Colton Jr. is another one deciding between Ole Miss and Colorado. So you want to be able to land that kind of guy as well. DQ Forkba, another guy as well. You have to be able to land that guy. He doesn't have a decision timetable yet, but you need to go ahead and try to see if you can land services at that because he is a four-star linebacker. He's 6'2", 220 pounds. He's a perfect fit for a Mike linebacker in this Tony White defense. And I think it's a logistic get that you can get because he's already talking about the destination of being able to be in the Garnet and Gold and wanting to play for Martin Neville and the staff. When you turn it over, though, a lot of times the biggest recruitment I think it's going to be is Chauncey Kennan. Chauncey Kennan is a five-star defensive back. He's deciding on July 6th. I thought there might be a possibility he delays and make sure that commitment is a little bit earlier than July 6th. He was coming off an official visit to LSU. Florida State looks to be in the driver's seat. Florida State's got over 5 crystal balls at this point for Kennan, and it could be a get that Florida State really enjoys. Patrick Surtain is a tremendous recruiter. He's got a bunch of DBs in this class. Darius Hughes is probably the most worrisome DB I have in all this group because he really hasn't. He's been visiting other schools. Syracuse is kind of in the mix there. But overall, you have guys like Darrell Bale as well that I really like. You have a Jay Timmons, who's a legacy commit. Sean Johnson, and then also Darius Hughes as well. So if you have 5 defensive backs in this class, that would be phenomenal. I think that Kennan could be that get that Florida State really needs to elevate that class in the next direction, as well as to kind of give them back on the good news part of things. So we got a couple of days before that happens, and Florida State fans want to be able to be tuned in for that. A lot of schools are in for his recruitment, like a Florida, Georgia, Miami, Oregon, all those other schools are something to kind of watch for there. But overall, if you're able to get Kennan, I think that could definitely open up the doors for a couple other guys, and he can be able to kind of recruit for you just like Devin Carter is, like a Jaden O'Neal is. So I really want to see what Florida State does to finally finish that out. Obviously, defensive back is not a position that you really need to recruit heavily on this season because you've recruited so well in the past with your young talent that you have. Obviously, you don't want to turn down 5-stars. You want to continue to get those guys, but you definitely need some of those guys in the trenches and also in other positions as well. But overall, I really do like this recruiting class. I know that Florida State fans are going to be like, well, our reign of of dominance is kind of over in the recruiting trail. I don't really think that. I think Florida State's coaching staff is getting some of the guys they want. Has it been a little disappointing so far in some of the guys they're getting? Yes. But will they be able to get on track before the summer ends? I definitely think it could be a strong finish to the end of the class. Now, obviously, you're at the ninth in the recruiting rankings according to 247 Composite. So you want to get a little bit more in those rankings because you're already taking 20 prospects as it is. You got a new scholarship allotment with 105 instead of 85. So really, you're wanting to find those guys that fit the most and what Florida State brings to the table. And I really think they're going to fill it up with more defensive and offensive trenches, make it one or two more linebackers in this situation as well, and then kind of figure out if you want maybe another running back and kind of go from there. Maybe another wide receiver if you want to get 5 wide receivers in this class. I think it's a bit overkill to get another wide receiver, but if you want to get someone that's 6'3" or 6'4", it's a little bit taller. A lot of the wide receivers they have in the class so far are about 6 foot, 6'1". So I think they probably want to bring in another quality wide receiver that has that type of skill set that can be able to go and high point the football at a high level. Overall, though, I really like this class. I think they can finish on a high note. I know that recruiting is very fluctuant, and I think it can really be something that Florida State fans have got to watch for. It all comes down to what you're going to be able to do this season because it's all nice and all to have a great and positive note so far, but you have to be able to close those deals when you're able to win on the field. But I hope each and every one of you have a great rest of the day, and as always, go Noles.